You wake up every day with that feeling that you're doing everything right, following all the steps, fulfilling all your obligations, but deep down, way deep down, you feel like something's missing. You work, you plan, you dream of the future, but that future never truly arrives. You keep putting off happiness, telling yourself that when you get that promotion, when you buy that house, when the kids grow up, then you'll finally stop to breathe. Then you'll really live. But the truth is, you're already tired of waiting. You're exhausted from chasing things that maybe don't even matter that much. And the worst part is, you're afraid to look back and realize you wasted it all. I know exactly how that feels because I lived it for decades. I'm 71 now, and 3 weeks ago, I found my journal from 30 years ago when I was 41. What I read on those yellowed pages completely broke me. It made me realize I'd spent 3 entire decades of my life living the same illusions, repeating the same mistakes, postponing the same things. And today, I need to tell you this story because maybe, just maybe, it will save you from wasting another 30 years like I did. I was organizing the attic, that kind of chore you put off for years because you know you'll unearth ghosts from the past. My wife, Mary Ann, had passed away 6 months earlier, and I finally had the courage to go through the boxes she'd kept so carefully. Amidst old photos, documents, and forgotten trinkets, I found a blue hardcover notebook I didn't even remember existed. It was my journal from 1995. I was 41 back then. I sat right there on the dusty attic floor and started to read. The first entries were from January of that year. I was excited about a new project at work, a promotion I'd just landed. I wrote that things were finally starting to move, that I was on the right track, that in a few years I'd be able to slow down and enjoy life. A few years. That phrase cut me like a knife because I remember writing it. I remember truly believing that in a few years everything would calm down. I kept reading. March 1995. My son was 8 and asked me to take him fishing that weekend. I wrote that I couldn't go because I had an important meeting Saturday morning. I promised we'd go next month. We never went next month. June of the same year. Mary Ann suggested we take a vacation, just the two of us, no kids. I wrote that it was impossible right then, that the project was in a critical phase maybe next year. We didn't go next year. September, my dad called saying he wasn't feeling well, that he'd like me to visit. He lived 3 hours away. I wrote that I'd try next weekend, but I had too much work piled up. I visited him 2 months later. He died 3 months after that. Every page of that journal was a broken promise, a postponement, an excuse. And on every page, I repeated the same phrase like a mantra. I truly believed in a few years I'll be able to slow down. When this project is over, when I get that promotion, when things calm down, when, sitting in that attic, with 61 years in my hands and 71 in my soul, I realized something devastating. I had written those words exactly 30 years ago. 30 years! And you know what else destroyed me? I could have written the same things last year. The same postponements, the same excuses, the same empty promises, because I never slowed down. Things never calmed down. I just got older chasing a finish line that doesn't exist. I cried there, alone in the attic, holding that journal. I cried for my son, who's 38 now and barely knows me. I cried for Mary Ann, who spent 47 years waiting for me to finally have time for her. I cried for my dad, who died waiting for more visits. I cried for myself, for the 41-year-old man who truly believed he had all the time in the world. And you know what hurts the most? Knowing I'm not alone. I'm sure you have your own postponements, your promises that you'll do the important things when you have more time, more money, more energy. Tell me here in the comments, what's the one thing you've been putting off for years? You can just write, "I'm postponing," and fill in the blank. It could be a phone call, a trip, a difficult conversation, a dream, whatever you want. Because when we put these things into words, when we admit we're postponing life, something starts to change. And you know what? Your comment might make someone else realize they're also trapped in this later trap. It might give someone the courage to act today. So tell me, what are you postponing? I went back to reading the journal in the following days. Each entry was a painful lesson on how I wasted my life chasing goals that ultimately mattered nothing. Because, you know what? I got that promotion I wanted so badly in 1995. And the company I worked for closed down 8 years later. All that sacrifice, all those overtime hours, all those weekends working, it all turned to dust. But you know what didn't turn to dust? The regret of not fishing with my son, of not traveling with my wife, of not spending more time with my dad. Those things remained. Those things haunt me to this day. I read about the day I missed my daughter's graduation because I had an unavoidable work commitment. Unavoidable. What a joke. I don't even remember what the commitment was anymore, but I perfectly remember her face when I called to say I wouldn't be able to make it. I read about the time Marianne prepared a special dinner for our anniversary, and I arrived 3 hours late because I was dealing with a problem that anyone else could have solved. I read about all the times I told myself that in a few years, when things calmed down, I'd make up for it. But I didn't, because there's no making up for lost time. There's no refund for moments you let slip away. And here's the cruelest lie I believed my entire life. The lie that having a successful career, a fat bank account, an impressive resume, that all of that would somehow bring me happiness. That I just needed to work hard enough, climb high enough, earn enough, and then I could finally relax and enjoy life. That's the biggest lie society sells you. Because the truth it took me 71 years to fully grasp, is that there's no finish line, there's no magical moment when everything calms down and you can finally live. Life is happening now, this very second, and if you're waiting for the perfect moment to truly start living, you're wasting the only moment that actually exists. I read a journal entry where I talked about a neighbor who died of a heart attack at 52. I'd written that it was sad, that he was so young that I needed to take better care of my health. But in the next paragraph, I was complaining about having to work longer hours because a colleague had quit. The obvious lesson didn't even cross my mind. The lesson that life is fragile, that none of us is guaranteed tomorrow, that I could be next. I saw death up close and still lived as if I were immortal. I have a friend, Roberto, who died last year at 69. In the last months of his life, when the cancer was advanced, he told me something that's etched into my soul. He said his biggest regret wasn't the things he did that went wrong. It was all the things he didn't do. All the trips he put off, all the conversations he avoided, all the risks he was afraid to take, all the times he chose security over joy. Roberto worked for 45 years at the same company. He retired with a good pension. bought the beachfront house he'd always dreamed of. He had 3 months to enjoy that house before the diagnosis. He died 6 months later. I spent 45 years waiting to live, he told me, and when I finally had the time, I didn't have any more life left. Those words echo in my head every day because I did the exact same thing. I spent decades accumulating for a future I thought was guaranteed. But it's not. Nothing is guaranteed. The only thing you truly have is today, now, this moment. And if you think this is old man talk, that you still have time, let me ask you a few questions. How old are your parents? How many times have you called them in the last month? How many real conversations have you had with them? Not those quick 5-minute check-ins asking if everything's okay. Real conversations, where you actually listen, truly connect. Because my father died at 73. I was 43. I thought I still had plenty of time. I always thought I'd have more time. Your wife, your husband, the person you love. When was the last time you truly stopped everything and dedicated a whole day just to be with that person? No phones, no distractions, no thinking about work. When? Your kids, if you have them. How many school plays have you missed? How many games? How many important moments have you sacrificed because you had something more urgent? Because, let me tell you something, you'll only understand when it's too late. There is nothing more urgent than being present in the lives of the people you love. Nothing. That meeting you can't miss. That project that's so important, that extra money you need to make. None of that will matter when you're my age looking back. I read a page from my journal where I talked about a dream I had of writing a book. It was something I'd always wanted to do. I wrote that I'd start when I had more time, when I retired, when things calmed down. I'm 71 now. Retired for 6 years. You know how many pages of that book I've written. 0. Because I spent so much time waiting for the perfect moment that when that moment arrived, I no longer had the energy, the creativity, the passion I had at 41. The perfect moment was 30 years ago. The perfect moment is always now. I read about the time Mariana suggested we take dance classes together. She always wanted to dance. I said it was ridiculous, that I had no rhythm, that maybe when I had more time. She stopped suggesting it after a few years, stopped dreaming with me, and I didn't even notice when it happened, because I was too busy with important things. At her funeral 6 months ago, I played a song she loved, a waltz. And I realized I'd never danced with her, not once, 50 years together, and I never danced with my wife, because I was always waiting for the right moment, and now the only moment left is regret. You know what truly scares me? That you're probably making the same mistakes I made. You're reading this now, and a part of you knows I'm right. You know you're putting off important things. You know you're putting work ahead of family. You know you're living on autopilot, going through the motions, but not really living. You know. But you'll finish reading this and go back to your routine. You'll tell yourself that tomorrow you'll change. That next week you'll call that person. That next month you'll take a vacation. That next year you'll chase that dream. And in 30 years, you'll be where I am now, holding a journal full of broken promises, crying over everything you let slip away, because the most brutal truth I've learned is this: you won't change tomorrow, you won't change next week. The only change that truly happens is the one you make now, this very second. Either you decide today is the day you stop postponing life, or you'll keep postponing it until there's no life left to postpone. If I could talk to the 41-year-old guy who wrote that journal, if I could sit down with him and tell him everything I know now, you know what I'd say? I'd tell him to stop trying to impress people who don't matter. Stop trying to climb a mountain with no peak. That promotion you think will change everything, it won't. That extra cash you think will make you happy, it won't. That approval you're desperately chasing, it doesn't matter. You know what matters. Your kid asking you to play, they won't ask forever. There comes a day they stop asking. And when that day comes, you'd give anything to have that simple request back. Your wife wanting to talk to you at the end of the day, wanting to tell you about the little details of her life. She won't want to forever. There comes a day she stops trying, and you don't even notice when the connection is lost. Your parents calling you, they won't call forever. And when the calls stop, you'll feel a void that no promotion, no salary, no professional achievement can fill. I'd tell him that life isn't in the next year, the next accomplishment, the next level. Life is in the little moments you're sacrificing right now. It's in the breakfast you skip because you're in a rush. In the sunset you don't see because you're at the office. In your child's laughter you don't hear because you're on the phone. In that conversation you don't have because you're too tired. Life is happening now, and you're too busy to notice. I'd tell him that work is important. Sure, that responsibility is important, but there are things no boss will ever tell you are urgent, but they're the only things that truly matter. Calling someone you love, hugging the people close to you, saying I love you before it's too late, being present, body and soul, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. I'd tell him that money comes and goes, jobs come and go, but people are irreplaceable. Moments are unique. Time is the only thing you truly can't buy back, and when it's gone, when you realize you've wasted it, there's no store where you can buy more. There's an entry in the journal from December 1995. The last page of the year, I made a list of resolutions for 1996, spend more time with family, travel more, start writing, exercise, learn a musical instrument. You know how many of those resolutions I kept? None. Because by January the 2nd, 1996, I was already back in the routine, the excuses, the postponements. And if you look at your own New Year's resolutions, that list of things you promised yourself you'd do this year, how many have you actually done? How many have you put off again? How many will you postpone yet again next year? Because that's the pattern. We make promises to ourselves, thinking this time will be different. But it's not. It's not because you don't truly decide to change. You decide you'll think about changing. You'll plan to change. You'll change when you have more time, more energy, more money. But to really change, that requires you to change today, now, this moment. And I know you're thinking I'm being dramatic, that you're still young, you have time. But let me tell you something. I thought that too at 41. I thought 70 was so far away I didn't even need to worry. You know how long it took me to get from 41 to 71? The blink of an eye. I swear, it was like I slept and woke up 30 years older. The years pass slowly when you're a kid. But when you become an adult, when you get into this grind of work and responsibility, the years fly. And before you know it, you're old, looking back, wondering where the time went, regretting all the things you didn't do. My granddaughter is 23. The other day she asked me what my biggest regret in life was. I thought a long time before answering, because I have so many. But the biggest one, the one that truly eats away at me, is wasting time, not being present. Living on autopilot for decades, believing I had all the time in the world when, in reality, every second was slipping through my fingers like sand. She looked at me with those young eyes full of life and said she wouldn't make the same mistakes, that she would live every moment. You know what I said? I said that's exactly what I said when I was her age. And look where I am now. Because the problem isn't not knowing. You already know. Everyone knows they should spend more time with the people they love. Everyone knows they should chase their dreams. Everyone knows life is short. But knowing changes nothing. What changes things is acting. And acting requires courage. It requires you to say no to things that seem important but aren't. It requires you to disappoint some people so you don't disappoint the people who truly matter. It requires you to step out of your comfort zone, to take risks, to truly live instead of just survive. And most people don't have that courage. I didn't. I spent my whole life in survival mode. Wake up, work, pay bills, sleep. Wake up, work, pay bills, sleep. And I convinced myself that this was life, that this was responsibility, that this was being an adult. But it wasn't. It was just fear. Fear of taking risks. Fear of change. Fear of truly living. And when fear controls your life, you don't live. You just get old. I closed the journal 3 weeks ago. Since then, I can't stop thinking about the 41-year-old man I was, so full of plans, so convinced I knew what I was doing, so blind to what truly mattered. And you know what's the most ironic part? I'm happier now at 71 than I was at 41, even with worse health, with Mariana gone, with so many regrets. Because now I know what matters. Now I call my son every week and we have real conversations. Now I visit my daughter and play with my grandkids without thinking about what I have to do next. Now I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is look out the window and thank God for another day. Because each day is a gift I wasted for decades. And now that I know they're counted, each one is worth gold. But you see the irony? I finally figured out how to live when I don't have much time left. Finally discovered the secret when the game is almost over. And that's the pattern. Most people only wake up when it's too late, when their health fails, when someone dies, when they look back and see a lifetime of missed opportunities. But it doesn't have to be this way. You don't need to wait until you're my age to get this. You can wake up today. You can close this text and make that call you've been putting off. You can book that trip you keep pushing back. You can have that tough conversation you're avoiding. You can start chasing that dream you've been shelving for the future. You can simply stop everything you're doing and be present, truly present, with someone you love. Because that's the only thing that really matters in the end. It's not how many zeros you had in your bank account. It's not what title you held. It's not how many hours you worked. It's how many lives you touched, how many moments you truly lived, how much love you gave and received, how much you were there when the people you love needed you. That's it. It's embarrassingly simple, but we spend our whole lives complicating it, looking for meaning in the wrong places, chasing things that ultimately don't matter at all. I tuck the journal away in a drawer of my desk. Sometimes I pull it out just to remind myself not to make the same mistakes again. Because even now, even knowing everything I know, It's easy to fall into the trap. It's easy to let the days slip by. It's easy to procrastinate. It's easy to say tomorrow, but tomorrow doesn't exist. Only today exists, and today is running out. For me, for you, for everyone. The clock doesn't stop, and every second that ticks by is a second you'll never get back. So you have a choice to make right now. You can keep living the way you're living, putting things off, convincing yourself you have time, believing that someday things will settle down and then you'll really live. Or you can wake up. You can realize that the only moment you have is now. You can decide that today, right this instant, you stop wasting the only life you have. Because if you made it this far, if you read this whole story, it's because something inside you is screaming for you to wake up. It's because you already know you need to change. It's because you're seeing your own life reflected in my words, and you're scared of ending up where I did. And you should be scared, because if you don't change anything, you will end up exactly here, in your 70s, holding a journal full of regrets, crying over everything you let slip away. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this story has touched you deeply. Maybe you're seeing your life projected into the future through my words. Maybe you're afraid of waking up 30 years from now with the same regrets I carry. You're not alone in this. This channel exists precisely for people like you. People who want to wake up before it's too late. Who want to learn from the mistakes of those who have already lived and know where the pitfalls are. Subscribe here to get more real stories, more lessons that I and others have learned from decades of life. Each video is an opportunity for you to avoid the regrets I've accumulated. Give this a like if this video made you reflect, even if it hurt a little to hear these truths. And please tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you've been putting off for years? What is your someday? When will you call that person? When will you start that project? When will you truly live? I'd love to read your story and know that my words helped you wake up before it was too late. Because the clock is ticking for all of us. And unlike what I believed at 41, time doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just ends. What will you do with the time you have left?